There's the camera. I'm always forgetting where the camera is since we've been doing it this way because I'm used to the camera being right above there.
Yeah.
So I have to look. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Walter Bosley channel. And we're both here tonight. Maliah's having kind of a lower energy day, not up to wanting to be on camera. So she's going to be here in voice.
The disembodied voice with the disembodied hand.
There you go. Yeah. And we got an interesting discussion tonight. Now, as you guys know, you regulars know, maybe the newbies don't know, Friday night is the live stream where we're a little more relaxed in our presentation. It is even more of just a discussion, just bouncing ideas, on topics. And so what's the word? Being pedantic, no reason for that, folks. No reason for that. That's because we're just casually talking.
We spend too much time on Speculation Island or headed that way. So
yeah,
pedantics, go.
If we don't get something exact,
enjoy.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to reach behind you, okay? Reach down into your pants. Pull them panties you're wearing or them boxer briefs. Okay? Pull that bunch out of your ass crack and relax, okay? Take a deep breath. Because being pedantic here with the way we discuss things, it ain't going to fly. You're probably going to get some type of half smart-ass response from me in the comments.
I thought you were going to tell him. I thought you were going to tell him to just give themselves a wedgie on that.
No, I tried to be polite. We're actually each having the Poppy probiotic beverages. She's having a girly pink strawberry, what?
It's raspberry rose.
Raspberry rose. Raspberry rose. I'm having an orange. This, of course, is a non-alcoholic beverage.
Walter has yet to bring any of his tiki mugs over here.
My bad.
He's waiting for me to buy him a curio cabinet just for the display of tiki mugs.
Mm-hmm. These are good.
Yeah, they are. I like them.
Okay, so first up, we received today our galley of my company, Lost Continent Library's first hardcover release, Secheree's Wonder of the Worlds. Look at that. There he is on the back. That's the man right there. Look at that. I kind of messed up I'm just really happy with how this turned out now. This is a hardcover, folks. Look at that. That's a dust jacket. That's a hardcover book, folks. Okay. There's the other two books in this trilogy. And there's the inside flap. Tells you a little bit about Sesh and what he wrote here. And let me find. Here we go. Give you a little taste. There's an illustration. Now, Secheree does his own illustrations. Okay, he did that illustration and all the illustrations in this book. But I'll tell you, this is a book you're going to want to have. And it is just shy of 400 pages. But here it is. Lost Continent Library's first hardcover release. Are you excited about that? I am, because I've been at this for 21 years, and I first published this book, I believe in 2005 is the official release date on it. And my gosh, that was 18 years ago, finally in hardcover. We're going to make that available here sometime this weekend, so watch for it either at the Walter Bosley channel or at Lulu directly. So there's that. And we talked about that. Now it's time for me, before we get to tonight's really interesting subject. Maliah and I, what was it, last weekend? It was last weekend.
Sure.
Yeah. Last weekend we saw...
Oh, yeah. Friday.
Last Friday, over the Thanksgiving weekend, we saw Napoleon from the director's chair of Ridley Scott. Well, we weren't sitting in his director's chair, but the Ridley Scott directed historical film. And I think we both had mixed feelings about it. Naturally, mine were a little bit more mixed because of having written this a few years ago, The Esoteric Napoleon.
Well, you're covering up the great shot.
Oh, there we go.
Which is in the movie.
This ends up being a shot in the movie, folks. Just telling you. Now, this is from a famous painting. In fact, I'll tell you what the painting is.
It's quoted, right?
This painting is by Jean-Léon Gérôme, or Jean-Léon Gérôme, Gerome, and it is, a painting that's been out there. Now, I just thought it was absolutely perfect for the book cover, and Ridley Scott felt it was worthy of a shot in his film. So, by the way, walterbosley.com, you are not going to want to not read this book if you haven't read it already, folks. Seriously. So we go see Napoleon, and basically here's the deal. Well, first of all, I'll tell you, historians are trashing this movie. Now, we know with films, they can't always get everything exactly right or include everything that, they could. All right. In fact, not including everything you could, or not including everything you should is, to me, that's a sin. Not including everything you could, that's not a sin. But just misrepresenting certain things, that's kind of unforgivable. And in this film, that happens. So you have historians who just trash this movie for that reason, but for another reason. And what's interesting about it is, when we finished watching it, I said to Maliah, because I was telling her through the whole thing, it got Napoleon's relationship with Josephine pretty spot on. Okay? Napoleon and Josephine were a couple of horn dogs, plain and simple. I mean, she had a past. He had a past. And boy, did that resonate. Napoleon wrote some pretty saucy, spicy, I think graphic letters to Josephine while he was in Egypt and other places. And of course, if you've read the history, you know that a servant got a hold of those letters and sold them to the newspapers. And the newspapers printed a lot of that stuff, to embarrass him. And it was pretty, adult, let's just call it adult material was in those letters. And that's no exaggeration. So in the film, how they depict their relationship, pretty accurate. But here's the thing about the film overall. They're presenting this is Napoleon, right? This is supposed to be about the historical story, the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. The problem is it jumps huge gaps of years. It leaves out so much historical detail that it leaves the film and the events in the film without context. I told Maliah when we walked out, I said, you know what? He really should have just titled this Napoleon and Josephine, and he should have marketed it as the romance, a romance about Napoleon and Josephine.
Well, it was clear that they had cut at least 2 hours out of the movie, chopped it up.
Yeah, obviously. And that explains the big leaps because, wait a minute, there's no way he didn't film a lot more. And as I told you before we saw it, before it was released, he was quoted in an interview on wanting to release the full 5 hours that he shot, perhaps on streaming or whatever. So based on that, we can say we know that there's definitely a lot more there than was shown in that 2 hour and 47-minute cut.
Which
running
begs, should it have been a series?
Right, on streaming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
that would have, it would have been nice to it just in retrospect, I really agree with the historians that it's a terrible telling of the story of Napoleon. Now, the production values are excellent. Okay. I've seen two historians, one a military historian, praise the costuming. And a couple of them did not like Joaquin Phoenix's performance. I can see why. There were some Joaquin Phoenix moments that I promise you were not Napoleon Bonaparte. One of which was a face slapper. There's a scene where he's addressing a contingency of diplomats, British diplomats, right? Now, he did not say the following to those diplomats historically. He said it to one of his generals, but the lines in the film are accurate. He did say, when a general was asking him, why are you building up your army and doing all this military activity right across the English Channel? Are you planning on invading England? And he confided to that general. He said, oh, no, not at all. We couldn't do it. We couldn't survive it. It wouldn't work. He admitted that there's no way in hell he could invade England and get away with it. He was honest with himself about that. But what he said was, I want England to think that I'm going to invade. I want England to be afraid that I'm going to invade. But he never intended. Now, much of the British propaganda against him was, he's going to invade and eat our children, after he boils them in a pot and all this ridiculous crap. But he never intended. Now, the movie has him saying that to the Brits. Okay, that's okay, I guess, because that was the intention, is for, the Brits to, but he never said it to the British. But he ends that little bit with suddenly, in the tone of voice of a petulant teenager, whining, you British think you're so great just because you have boats. And he turns around and stomps off. And Maliah will tell you, I was like, oh, for Christ's sake. And not only did he not say the true part to the Brits directly, because that would have defeated his purpose, he never did crap like that. You think you're so great because you got, but it's like you cool kids, no way.
It was out of context.
Well, it's something he would not have done.
Like the ending, which seemed out of context. The death list there.
Oh, the you mean when he dies?
No, how many?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say something about that. At the end of the movie, director Ridley Scott, himself a Brit, remember? And all of you watchers and viewers of mine who are in England and the UK, you guys know I love you. Just like here in America, when we trash our political class, when I'm referring to the English and the Brits in my discussion of Napoleon Bonaparte, just like I say more than once in this, I'm talking about your political class. I can say, we probably agree on your political class just like we agree on our political class, right? They're all assholes. American political elites are assholes, But here's the thing. Ridley Scott chooses to end the film showing the death count of the battles or the Napoleonic Wars and things like that. Yeah. Here's the problem with that, Ridley. We could do the same thing with how many people died at the hands of other wars that England was involved in with other foes and started themselves. We could do that with the United States. My God, big time. Okay, you can do that with any nation that goes to war. It's war. People are going to die. Okay. But I'd like to remind people, if you didn't know, and it's, again, one of the things I point out in my book, and it's all through the history, of the so-called Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon Bonaparte only started one. All but one were initiated by England and the European oligarchies running their various monarchies in their countries. Okay, so why should they be called the Napoleonic Wars? Maybe they should be called the Wars of oligarchic aggression, European and British oligarchic oppression. Now, here's an interesting thing. The reason they took him to St. Helena was because they had brought him to England. And guess what? God bless them. The English people were so enamored and fascinated with Napoleon Bonaparte that the British authorities were panicking, and they said, there's no way we can have this man on British soil. You know, our own people will like him too much. Oh, God forbid. That's why they decided to put him on St. Helena. Okay? So, you know, it's the elitists, it's the oligarchs. Another thing about the film, getting back to the film, is Rupert Everett is in the film, and he plays the Duke of Wellington, Lord Wellesley. Rupert Everett, consummate actor. He's awesome as a crusty, grouchy commander. But my understanding of the history is that Wellington, the Duke of Wellington, was much more like Christopher Plummer's portrayal in the 1970 film Waterloo than he was like Rupert Everett's crabby old, Napoleon's vermin. My understanding of the history is not that Wellington thought of Napoleon that way, but anyway, the film is well done. It's edited. The second half is really worse in its choppiness. I think there's 2 shots of Napoleon in Egypt. 2 shots of Napoleon in Egypt. They never even mention the great scientific advancements and discoveries, the archaeology, the creation of the study of ancient, Egyptology, and all these amazing things that the savants did. No. It was just Napoleon going to look at the Sphinx and then shoot a cannon at the pyramid, which, by the way, the Battle of the Pyramids was 13 miles away or something like that. They didn't even see the pyramids. Napoleon's army did not blast cannons at the face of the pyramid, in that battle.
Well, what bothered me about the scene, too, of Egypt, yes, it was super cool to see that painting brought to life.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a dud.
Yeah.
It just didn't fire.
A big letdown.
Because for me, the biggest letdown was the joke on he needed a box to stand and look the pharaoh in the eye.
Yeah.
It was like short Napoleon, really.
Yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte was average height, folks.
Yeah.
I referenced, literally read well over 6,000 pages in my research for Esoteric Napoleon. And I read British historians, the whole gamut dating from contemporaries up till modern times. And they pretty much, all of them, say he was actually of average height for the era, for the time. He was not short, fat, little glum. It was the type of
angry
thing.
Little man.
Yeah, and I was really disappointed that Ridley Scott chose to go there. I agree with the historian that said Ridley Scott phoned this in as far as the history. One historian doubted whether Ridley Scott even read a book, that he probably read the Wikipedia, bio of Napoleon and said, I could do that. And that was it. So if it were just a movie about Napoleon and Josephine, it would be fine. But other than that, it's a fail. What do you think, Maliah? Am I being too harsh?
Well, I don't think you're being too harsh at all. Actually maybe a little, because I came away freaking loving the movie.
Yes.
And I thought it was fun. I thought it was excellent in costume design and the intense levels of
Yeah,
the
the
costume
production
design.
values, we're in total agreement.
That
2 thumbs
was
up.
fun. The war scenes, the gruesomeness was a
Yeah.
little on
The
the
gruesomeness
edge.
of artillery is, it's not on the
Like-
Spielberg Private Ryan level, but
No, he's pushing the fringe on the gruesome from open scene.
it shows you what happens when his horse was shot out from under him by a cannon.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting that. It was
That
like,
was,
oh.
whoa. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I came away enjoying it much more than Indiana Jones, which was the last theater we went to, big movie in the theater.
You've only
And
seen the first half hour of that
I
movie.
walked out on that movie. I liked it.
Let me say one thing though about the battles with Waterloo. Again, they show him running off. Ridley, shame on you. How dare you? Napoleon Bonaparte did not run off and abandon his army. 2 of the historians reviewing it will back this up. He actually stayed with a rear guard while his army retreated. What was, the surviving army retreated. He made sure that they got away before he left the battlefield.
Yeah.
So he didn't do any of that crap. Oh, and by the way, the bit about him abandoning Egypt, that's the way Ridley Scott presents it. No, scholarship has shown that he was requested by the Directory, the government of France, to please come home. We got beans and bologna. No, they said, get back here, Napoleon. We need you. And he reluctantly left left Egypt.
What do you mean
early?
What do you mean by production value?
Costuming, cinematography, props.
Okay.
That's production value.
Just clarifying.
Yeah. That's production value. The what it looks like, visually and stuff. Now, Joaquin
was amazing, in my opinion.
The guy is an amazing actor, except for those moments where he did stuff that just so obviously, like putting the crown. In real life, the witnesses say he brought the crown down. He did take it out of the hand of the priest, of the bishop. Yeah. Screw the Vatican and Rome, the Roman Church. He took the crown out of the bishop's hand, which surprised them all in the middle of the coronation. He brought it down, but he never actually put it on his head. He put it over his head. And he said later he did that for the people of France. It was, we're taking our country out of the hands and control of the church, of the influence of Rome and the Vatican. That's why he did that. But he never put it on his head. He held it over his head, and then he set it back down. Okay, they never. And another thing is they show him all solemn and everything like that. But the witnesses say that when he and Josephine and their wedding retinue, their wedding party, entered the cathedral, they entered through the wrong door. It was a big screw up, and the witnesses said they were laughing to themselves, like, "Oh my, we're going through the wrong door." So he had self-deprecating humor. But I'm sorry, this is supposed to be a show about
Let's get
another thing.
Yeah, that's a fun topic. But yes, let's get into the topic. Of
Napoleon is flawed. Unless you really, really want to see it on the big screen, I would wait till it's streaming.
I think it is streaming now.
Okay,
I think
it better be
yesterday.
because it kind of twirled down the toilet, if you know what I mean, at the theaters. But
yep.
Anyway, So how many minutes have I eaten?
25.
Oh, is the live chat screaming at me?
No, they're having fun.
So, hey, I said tonight's our casual. Friday is our casual night, folks. It's not strict, but I was thinking about the Woody Derberger case, Indrid Cold. Okay.
Let's context that really quick because we were talking about that on Wednesday night stream. If you haven't seen it yet, go check that one out. It's with Joshua Cutchin, one of our favorite returnees.
Yep.
And they got, boy, you get ready for a mind blow.
I'm doing this again.
A few of them.
I gotta stop.
That show with Josh was just stellar.
Yeah, please check
stellar.
out. If you haven't watched Wednesday night's show, please check it out.
So, Indrid Cold.
Indrid Cold. In 1966, a man named Woodrow Derberger, real name, not making that up, from Mineral Wells, West Virginia, was coming home from Marietta, Ohio, on Highway 77 when he had an encounter with a weird flying object and a human man, or at least, a human. I didn't say Earthman, but a human man who introduced himself as Cold. Now, subsequently, in Woody Derberger's what's the word I'm going for? Extrapolation or whatever. When he told of the continuing contact with Mr. Cold, he said that, Mr. Cold's first name was Indrid, Indrid, Indrid. And because of that, myself included, over the years, people have thought, that's interesting. That's close to the...
yeah, I was noticing that. It's all there.
That's close to the name Indra. And, that's pretty thin to say, there's some type of Hindu or Vedic thread running through the Indrid Cold story. But then a gentleman by the name of Andrew Colvin, he really pulled the threads and pointed out that, you see, Mothman was appearing around the time that Woody Derberger was having his experiences with Mr. Cold. So Indrid Cold and the Mothman are often, and Mothman was being seen around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and around the area there, around Parkersburg, not far from. And so they're very often tied together. Well, Andy Colvin, I think he's contributed a lot of literature to the whole Mothman thing. Check out his Mothman's Photographer books. There's like 5 volumes of it or something. And they're like this thick. He points out that Mothman might be or represent Garuda or the Garuda. And if you look at the graphic for tonight's show, that is an artistic depiction of the Garuda. Sort of. It looks like a winged human figure. The Garuda is, I think, it's a bird figure. It's supposed to be a beaked, kind of figure. But he has pointed out the resonance between Mothman and the Garuda. So that even more so makes one wonder, is there some type of Vedic or Hindu association to Mr. Cold, to Indrid Cold? Now, folks, I want to put this in context again. When I use the term Vedic, I'm not talking I'm not talking theology here. Okay, I'm talking a theme that has to do with way ancient, more ancient than antediluvian history. Okay, the past. Okay, I'm talking about civilization and culture and things like that. So forgive me, you pedantic people out there. I know the definition of Vedic, but just relax. Pull that bunched up underwear out of your butt crack. Have yourself a nice beverage. And just let it go. Okay? Pedantia will get you nowhere here at the Walter Bosley channel. I will just turn around, roll it up. One end will be pointed, and up it goes. You get no lube. Okay? So don't be pedantic with me. Damn. Anyway.
Walter don't like pedantic.
I really don't. All it is a look at me. I'm showing off. I know the details that you're not mentioning. So anyway, that's...
Well, is it not what have we been talking about? The Darren Kernberger, however you say that.
Kernberger. Wilroy Kernberger.
Isn't that not
How you doing?
The same phenomenon?
This is Wilroy Kernberger. I live in Mineral Wells, West Virginia. Woody Derberger.
No. What I'm talking about, the effect of where people believe that they are smarter than they actually
Dunning-Kruger.
There it is.
Oh, my God. And I'll tell you, for those of you outside the United States that have never been here, if you want to come to the capital of the Dunning-Kruger effect, you get on that plane or that boat or whatever, and you come to the United States, because we got the biggest number of Dunning-Kruger assholes in this country than I think in the rest of the world.
So unpackage, what is Dunning-Kruger?
Look up the definition yourself, because I know some pedantic. Oh, well, actually, it's basically, it's look, don't be pedantic. It's basically meaning, that's the word of the day. It's basically meaning, Dunning-Kruger, is when you think you know more than you actually do. And it has something to do with the proportion of how much you think you know is a direct ratio to actually how much you don't know. And you guys know how I feel about the cocksurety. Just if you don't know, act like you do. That's cocksurety. That's bullshit in my book. In America, again, the capital of cocksurety. Okay. So that's why, Dunning-Kruger is big here. So anyway, what was the point?
On to Indrid Cold.
Back to Indrid Cold.
Little rabbit trail there of.
I told you, Friday nights are supposed to be fun. So anyway, you'll have to forgive me. I have a dental issue that's getting in the way of me speaking clearly. So, Indrid Cold. Because of the interesting analysis that Andy Colvin has presented, kind of thematically linking and making an argument for Mothman being the Garuda, we have to consider Indrid Cold possibly being, someone of, I suggest, the lost civilization of the Vedic past, the group that departed, because in that lore, in those histories, you get a story of Earthmen who long ago had the technology, and they left the planet, and they went across, space and found other worlds to live on. Well, in the Woody Derberger story, in his encounter with Indrid Cold, he describes Mr. Cold as a dark-haired tan. He made a point of saying, oh, he's very tan and dark-haired. Well, is that another way of describing, someone from India, the more dusky-colored, darker, let's see, there's the Vedic, but then there's the you guys know, and they break them out into castes there, that caste system thing. Was he describing perhaps a man from, that culture? And if Mr. Cold really was from another planet, as Woody says after his initial report, could he have been a descendant of some of those long ago Earthmen from India who left the planet and went to another one? Now, here's the problem with Woody Derberger's subsequent book following his report. Okay. Now, there's a really good interview. You can find it on YouTube from 1966. Get this. He went on a TV or radio show, TV show, like a local TV affiliate. I don't know if you knew this, Maliah. But he went on a local affiliate the day after his first encounter with Mr. Cold. It's really interesting. That night, he calls a guy he knows who's with a radio show. And that guy said, oh, he was scared to death. He was nervous. Woody was scared to death, was scared and frightened, but he was willing to come on this TV show the next day, and it's a 25-minute interview. Now, folks, that's the interview. Go find it on YouTube. We can probably post the link, right?
Nah, we probably won't find the time for that.
Maybe not. Look for it. You'll see it.
Go find it.
It shows a black and white picture of Woody Derberger and a black and white artistic rendering of what he saw and Mr. Cold. But to me, that's the most important and first source you should go to. The problem with a subsequent book is, as you might guess, UFO world, UFO land, the 1960s version of UFO Twitter already existed, and it had been a popular thing to say, I saw a flying saucer and a man from another world. Now, what's interesting is during that initial encounter, Cold doesn't mention anything about another planet. He says things like where I come from or where I live, and Woody describes him as a human being. But when they communicate, he doesn't open his mouth. He says, oh, it must be telepathic communication. But he describes Indrid Cold, who he calls only Mr. Cold, or Cold. He doesn't even say Mr. He just says Cold. Pretty much as human. And what he describes, you can see it on the YouTube thing if you find it. It looks like you guys are familiar with oil lamps, the glass shroud that is slender at the top, and then it bows out and it gets slender again. Well, imagine if the slender parts were of equal length and there's the bulge in the middle, horizontal. That's the way Woody described this thing. But it was metallic, a very dark gray metallic. Almost like descriptions of the bell.
Really?
And there are those who wonder, because of some reports of the weird hieroglyphs around the base of the Kecksburg UFO, if maybe it wasn't Sanskrit symbols.
Now that part really, really interests me because of Sanskrit.
So now we got a new thing. I hadn't thought of that till just now. Mr. Cold's ship, as described by Woody Derberger, you could argue that it resembles the Bell or that kind of technology. And what have I'm not the only one, but I've got a pretty good presentation here on my video about the Bell. The Walter Bosley has issues with the Nazi Bell. Go find it, folks. It's here on the Walter Bosley channel.
On the main page.
And I show you the remarkable resonance between the description of the Bell and the Vimanas. Okay? This is much talked about. This is not original with me, but in my video, I present them side by side. So if you've heard that, go look at it. It's in the video. So now we have reason to suspect, even more so, Indrid Cold being very much an Earthman somewhere here on Earth. Now, the reason I mentioned Woody's subsequent book is because in that book, he claims to have been taken to Lanalos. He claims that that's what Cold, Mr. Cold, Indrid Cold, tells him was the name of his world, Lanalos. And he says in the book that Indrid Cold told him that Lanalos orbits Ganymede across the cosmos. Well, then, and I apologize, I don't have the Derberger book in front of me because we didn't know we were talking about this until this afternoon. But I have read the book, and I talk about it in one of my other books that I don't have here. But I recall the description of Lanalos, and I argue this either in a book or a video. The description of Lanalos sounded like it could just as easily have been India or somewhere in Southeast Asia, or maybe even South America. It was very green and lush, and the people walk around naked, and it's very comfortable to do so. That could sound like tropical environment. So, I've posed the question, did Indrid Cold tell Woody a line of crap about them being on another planet, crossing the cosmos to a planet orbiting Ganymede, right? Or did Woody embellish his story and add the part about the planet around Ganymede because that was the popular thing of the day? That was the way to get attention as a UFO contactee. You have to ask yourself that. Did Woody make up the Ganymede Lanalos planet crap? Did Indrid Cold actually just take Woody Derberger to some other part of this planet? Did he take him to Southeast Asia? Did he take him to, some jungle, a jungle location, or in India, or even South America? Okay. That is possible, that the whole thing about Lanalos being another planet is bullshit. After all, Woody is a contactee of the era of bullshit contactee reports. Okay. We got to be honest with ourselves. The whole story could be a lie. We don't know that, but anyway, this whole thing to me has resonated for years with this Vedic civilization, this Rama Empire question that I like to talk about, particularly where the Kam Empire is concerned. So that got me looking through interesting books. And I know our friend Nick Nolan is here tonight. I believe I saw him in the live chat. Nick, you're here. One of the many books that our friend Nick Nolan sent, I got to looking in this book. P.N. Oak, our friend P.N. Oak. Get the glasses on. And here's what's interesting. In the chapter, this is World Vedic Heritage, A History of Histories by P.N. Oak, Volume 1. In the chapter on the Ramayanic War, Mr. Oak writes some interesting things, Maliah.
That book is priceless. It really is. The intense value.
And this is just one volume of priceless books that Nick sent us. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, Nick, there's an endless amount of compliments.
This is good stuff. I got to quit I'm sorry, I'm playing around in this chair and being animated.
Well, Nick wanted to know if there might be some guarana in that soda pop.
It could be.
The face.
No. Where's the thing?
What thing?
There could be some guarana in this. Are you allowed to do it? No, YouTube. Right? If I duck below the desk, I'm not doing what you think. I'm doing that.
Oh, I turned it off.
That one went right over her head. Anyway. Good Lord.
Feigning ignorance is
How many people we got?
Women get really good at.
Oh, yeah, because the way guys are. Looks like we lost about 5 or 6, 7 people. Is that the pedantics?
No, YouTube, and I would like to bring this up.
We're back up to 70.
YouTube has been really messing with the last 3 live stream numbers when it comes to ours. I don't know if they've decided to blacklist us because of some of the stuff that was discussed a few streams ago, and our research material that talks about NIMJA and the correlating factors of that. But it was really easy to see, that YouTube wanted to show us getting 30 views when there was easily hundreds of people in the room. So yeah, there's that. We're going to see some number. It's just my pedantics.
We're right back. We're right back where we were. Now, to get back on the topic, this is where the 3 worlds of the title of the show comes in. Okay, because what we're doing is I want to show you that that if Indrid Cold really was coming from another planet and could travel the worlds or whatever, It is in Vedic literature. Now, Mr. Oak, in his book, in the chapter on the Ramayanic War, there's a section called The Three Worlds. I'll read some highlighted parts for you. In the Ramayanic times, one often hears of three worlds. Rama is known as the ruler of the three worlds. One also comes across mention of mutual visits by the eminent leaders of those worlds by spacecraft. Okay. He talks about how even like in our world, air travel is, oh man, I got to quit moving. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. He talks about how back then, really flying in spacecraft was something for the elite, just like it is in our times. He writes further, it could be that in the Treta Yuga, to which belongs the Ramayana Empire, era, the Ramayana events, and in the Dwapar Yuga, to which belongs the Mahabharata events, people on our earth were on visiting terms with people on two other celestial bodies, but only the very mighty could command the resources required for such visits. Ramayanic references to the three worlds must not, therefore, be deemed to be mere poetic fantasy. Oak is arguing that it's literal, that the works mean that they were going to and from other worlds. Now, let's go to my card here, because I have something to say about the three worlds, but this is the stuff on Mexico. Okay, so here's the interesting thing. In Hindu cosmology, you have the concept of the three worlds, right? Now, the three worlds, of course, are earth, heaven, and hell. I thought, what if, since they're identifying the earth, of course, what if earth, heaven, and hell were Earth, Mars, and Venus? Hear me out on this. When we see the map of our solar system, we see it in a horizontal presentation. But what if we look at it in a vertical presentation? Okay, the sun, then Mercury. It talks about how hell is south of the earth, off our south pole, and heaven is off our north pole. Okay. Well, we know that there's talk about in ancient times there was a tilt, that the earth was oriented a different way. What if in a vertical representation of our solar system, the poles were in alignment with a vertical presentation? In other words, today that means our poles would be what we call to the east and west instead of to the north and south. Okay, what if this was before the flipping of the poles? So then we had let's say a vertical presentation of our solar system. We just lost. Okay, Venus would be south. It went black and then twirled. Venus would be south. Now, Venus is closer to the sun than we are. And we know that the Russians have sent probes to the surface of Venus that lasted, I think, like a few minutes or something like that before they burned up because it's so hot. Well, how is hell described, right? As a hot place. Now, it's also described as a subterranean place. What if in the Hindu cosmology, they're talking about Venus when they talk about hell, because perhaps it's the interior of the planet that humans can survive in. Now, this isn't original with me. There's other traditions that talk about Venus being a hollow planet because nobody could survive on the surface, and living things would have to be on the inside, but it would still be a real hot, muggy, sweaty kind of not a great place. Probably it'd be hellish. So that means then we go to Mars. Mars would be heaven because it's, as described in the Hindu cosmology, off our North Pole. And remember, in this example, I'm saying that the poles were commensurate with, at that time, I'm speculating here, folks. Remember, you pedantics, control yourselves. In a vertical presentation, not a horizontal presentation, the planets aligned with the poles like this. So Mars would be in the heaven position to the north or above, so to speak, Earth from the sun. Now, we think that thanks to, oh my gosh, I didn't look him up.
Oh.
John, you guys know who I'm talking about. John, what's his name? Who's presented the theory that
Friends with Joseph.
Friends with Joseph Farrell, and he's the guy that presented the theory that an isotope that only could have been present because of a nuclear war. Oh my gosh, I've had him on this show.
Well, throw it in the live chat.
Okay, live chat. Remind me of what my friend John's name.
I'll catch it.
Good Lord. Brandenburg.
You found it.
Thank you.
Somebody telepathically communicated
Brandenburg,
that.
John Brandenburg. He's presented the best evidence that there was
that was telegraphic, and I even said. Yeah.
John Brandenburg
really weird.
has presented the best evidence for the argument that there was a civilization on Mars long ago that was destroyed by a nuclear type of weapon. Okay, a nuclear weapon. Now, we also see weird things in the imagery from Mars, and there's a lot of us who think NASA is playing this game where they're just openly showing us what are indeed relics, but they're not addressing it. They're just letting us make of it what we will. That's an interesting discussion. So what if the three worlds in Hindu cosmology were Venus, Earth, and Mars? And for that matter, what if, as we've talked about before, others have talked about, again, this is not original with me, I'm not claiming to own this idea, but we've talked about with Joseph Farrell in the Transtemporal Cosmic Warfare discussions. What if the asteroid belt is the remains of a planet that had been destroyed in some type of war, particularly, the war during the Ramayana times or was maybe blasted by the Giza Death Star? There's talk about the moon having been a biosphere, using a geospheric craft, meaning they used natural resources to hollow out this thing, and the moon was some type of massive space ark or craft that came here and parked in our orbit. Well, if there was this massive war that destroyed the planet beyond Mars, and also during that war, the civilization on Mars was ruined, was trashed, was destroyed, it's possible that the survivors or the surviving military of Mars came to Earth in the moon and then came to whoop some ass and lord it over us and finally stop this misuse of the Giza Death Star, what have you. Okay, this could, hypothetically, speculative, this kind of makes a sense, right? So, we have to consider it. Here it is in Hindu cosmology, the three worlds. Okay. What if, Mr. Cold's people were, descendants of the people who came from Mars? I don't know. You guys think about that. I'm just throwing ideas out. And then we get to, well, first I want to close that up. Well, I presented it. I want to move on from there, but, think about that. In the Hindu cosmology, consider that the three worlds, the heaven, earth, and hell, might actually have been Mars, Earth, and Venus when you're looking at a vertical. Read the description yourself. You'll see why I'm saying in a vertical presentation of our solar system, the Hindu cosmology works perfectly for it being Mars, Earth, and Venus. Heaven, Earth, and hell. And maybe Mars was considered heaven because that's where the so-called gods were residing. Maybe that's because Mars was this wonderful garden spot before it was destroyed, a la John Brandenburg's theory. And maybe it was considered heaven because it was just wonderful to live there. And of course, it got destroyed in a war. So that gives you some food for thought to take seriously the possibility, the idea that Indrid Cold may have been a descendant of this Hindu cosmological Vedic cultural lost civilization. Okay. So then we have to go, okay, if he didn't take him to a planet around Ganymede, okay, if we're going to doubt what Woody Derberger says in his book, where did he actually take him? What?
Hang on, I'll be right back.
She'll be right back. Where did Mr. Cold actually take Woody if he took him somewhere? I say he took him somewhere on this planet in a jungle, lush jungle, tropical environment. He could have taken him to somewhere in India, somewhere, pick a place in Southeast Asia, but I argue that it would be a little bit more off the beaten path than there. This is why I say maybe somewhere in the heart of a jungle in India. But let's go to the biggest jungle on Earth, South America. Think about all the UFO and weirdness associated with South America. Think about the megalithic ruins and all that stuff down there. Think about all the stuff that, I've talked about in, I don't have it with me here. I don't have Burton with me, but think about that. Indrid Cold could have taken Woody just somewhere down in the Mato Grosso jungle, some hideout, just some secret base that they talk about that is a secret Ramayana or Rama Empire civilization, right? Maybe these Martians, maybe the remember, in the Hindu cosmology, Earth people of these long ago times, right, left Earth, went to another planet, went to other worlds. Well, what if they had to come back because of this war on Mars? Okay, well, there's long been stories about the so-called aliens, the others, I prefer to say, hiding out, in secluded areas on the planet, and hiding out in the Mato Grosso. That'd be a perfect place to have, a hidden jungle city. Think about the city of Manuscript 512. So it gets you thinking, what are there any clues here on Earth? Are there any clues in particular in greater Latin America that could back up this idea? Well, it just so happens that Mr. Oak points out these places around the world, and Mexico is in the mix. One of the things he says here in his chapter on the Vedic past of America, the Americas, when he says America, he means not just the United States of, he means North and South America. He claims, now this is Oak, this is not me, he says Aztec is equivalent to the term Aztik, A-S-T-I-K, which were, in the Vedic tradition, they were theists or believers in divinity. He wrote it kind of weird. And he points out that Uruguay is from Urugava, which is the god Vishnu. It's interesting. Remember, look at the book by Gene Matlock, the last book on Atlantis you'll ever need to read, something like that. Gene Matlock. Read that book because he just points out a list, one thing after another, of words in, say, like the Hopi language and the Navajo that are exact to, the Sanskrit and the ancient Hindu words. Guatemala, says Mr. Oak, is the term Guatemalaya, meaning the abode. Oak says Arhuntana with a J, in Sanskrit signifies silver. Okay? He says Argentina is well known for its silvers. My God, argent. Is argent silver or gold? Oro is gold. Argent is silver. Correct?
When you're ready, I'm ready.
Okay, hold on. So Arhuntana in Sanskrit means silver, and of course, Argentina is called Argentina. All right. And then Venezuela, he says, this is Mr. Oak, Vana Ujwal, the glorious forest. Well, Venezuela has a jungle, right? Glorious forest. This is just, some of the word stuff. We have more here, but what did you find, Maliah?
Well, you kept saying that he called this place that he came from to be Ganymede.
No, he said the planet was Lanalos in orbit around Ganymede, the star.
Around Ganymede. Mm-hmm. Okay, the star. Well, I noticed that phonetically that matches Sanskrit, and you did have a mention of Sanskrit being on the actual ship, right?
No, not on his ship. Woody didn't say it was on his ship. I was talking about the hieroglyphs that are reported of having been around the base of the Kecksburg UFO, which essentially, they call it an acorn. It's essentially a bell.
Okay. Well, that beside the point, it was an extra point there. But I found it interesting that the phonetics matched. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know why, but I do believe that we should invert this, meaning turn it around and see what those phonetics say. See if it comes up with anything in the Sanskrit language.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, it very much does. So
tell us.
It makes two words. The first being Dam, which if you know Hebrew, you're familiar with Hebrew, Dam is the blood, the earth, the soil. These kinds of things relate to the word Dam. The second word I wasn't familiar with, so I had to run and grab my dictionary to see if I could find it even, is one pronounced kind of like a nig or einig, something like that. And what it means is of delicate soil, of delicateness. So I find that interesting.
Blood of delicate soil.
Well, both words having relation to soil.
Blood, soil, of delicate soil.
And one of blood and what are humans made of? Blood and soil and water.
But delicate red soil, red planet, Mars.
Right. Even more like, or Earth even, because this is the very basic concept of Earth. You did
we have
kind
red
of
soil
speculate
here, right?
that, oh yes, and that's said to be of the most ancient places on Earth.
And the red soil is
where
fertile,
the red
correct?
soil is extremely fertile, the most the fertiles. So I wonder, it makes me wonder if he actually is referring to what one of the hypotheses being that he's from Earth and he brought them to another place in the Earth that was not that was unaware of at the time.
Yeah, because this was 1966.
Yeah, well, of course, places like Yucatan in the jungle and these kind of places are going to be known.
Well, but not like today. Not like today, because we didn't have the what's that one? Oh my gosh, it's an acronym. That one particular satellite photo technology that does the scanning. That's just incredible. That in the last 20 years, they're finding all these cities they never knew were there simply because
that's
in '66 that didn't exist.
Yeah, the topographical maps.
So
stuff
it would have been easier for a Marconi type city in the jungle, for there to be activity and people there and not be detected.
Correct. Like in places today. Like Guatemala and deep South America. Absolutely.
Well, the Mato Grosso jungle.
Matching the type of jungle atmosphere he's describing. But also to your hypotheses, and big time, we're completely in the murky waters of speculation on this one. But could it have been, or to kind of maybe flip things around a little bit, in the ancient text, it's repeated over and over again that there's some kind of pole flip happening to the earth.
Right.
And so what if it was originally set that Mars was hell and Venus was the heaven in the north?
Could have been.
And that very flip is what made both places...
If the sun would be in the northernmost position of the system. Yeah. Yeah, it could be. It could be either one. I went for Venus because it's literally, whether the sun is above or below or over here, Venus is closer to the sun, therefore it's heat than Earth. That's why I went that way.
Yeah. Well,
unless the sun did not burn as bright
or
as hot.
There's that too. But
because some say that there is a possibility that life could have been on Mercury, and as the sun got bigger and hotter, it went, as Mercury got uninhabitable, it then moved to Venus. Same thing with Venus, then moved to Earth, and then sun went to, Mars, which they already would have gone to Mars, I think. But, as long as you can survive, you're always leaving somebody behind, because as we know, there are namby-pam homebodies that never want to leave their house. And God forbid you talk about them leaving the planet and they think everybody else should stay home too and tend the gardens. I can't live that way.
We could still be, I won't trigger you there.
An agrarian society that we have not been since 1900. But I digress. That's another topic. I hope you're all having fun here tonight at the Walter Bosley channel. We sure are. So let's get into Mexico, the things in Mexico. Now, Mr. Oak, in his book, says that Mexico is the Sanskrit term, and I'm probably going to devastate the pronunciation of this because I have not studied Sanskrit. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. It's spelled Moxaca. Moxaca is what a dumbass American like me would pronounce it as, but it might be Mojaka or Mokshaca. Okay? Mexico is the Sanskrit term Mozaka, connoting a place of salvation abounding in temples, seminaries, monasteries, sarais, and Vedic hermitage schools during pre-Christian times. Now, he has another spelling here, which I think it is Mokshaka, because he says Makshik is the product, the substance, Makshik, is a honey-like mineral used in Ayurvedic remedies. It could be that Mexico was a rich source of that mineral.
Wait. Not could be. Absolutely still is. Because in the Yucatan is the most ancient honeybee of them all, called the Melipona, which is a stingless honeybee, and it makes highly medicinal.
And that
medicine.
Is what Mr. Oak is talking about. Folks, admittedly, Oak could be plastering, a Monday morning quarterback type of meanings to this stuff. But it looks to me so far from what I've seen that he's just doing the linguistic and historical and analyses of what these things mean.
Well, same thing like what I asked you today. Do they have the X? How do they pronounce the X?
Yeah, we talked about that when we were talking about the Basques and the Aztecs. This is what we talk about. This was lunchtime discussion at our favorite local Indian cafe today. Anyway, so there we go. There's the honey thing. That catches your attention. Now, now I made notes. There's more that he said about Mexico and such, but I made the highlighted notes. He's talking about a monkey deity being discovered at a Mexico City subway station. This was talked about in the National Geographic magazine in 1990. The monkey is said to be the wind god Ectil of the Aztec people, whose breath started the movement of the Aztec sun. Well, in Vedic lore, points out Mr. Oak, Hanuman, you guys have heard of Hanuman, the monkey god is said to be the son of the wind, who tried to fly to the sun at a young age. The son of the wind. Now remember, the wind god Ectil of the Aztec people is how archaeologists identified this monkey idol found in a dig at the Mexico City subway station. And here we have Hanuman, who is the son of the wind. Come on, folks. Come on. Here's even a picture of the so-called monkey god idol right there. So, you know. Now, just like Gene Matlock in the book I mentioned before, Mr. Oak here writes, after the devastation of the Great Mahabharat, or World War, circa 5561 BC, is what he puts it at, when world communications broke down, the American continents remained isolated for several centuries after that. Okay. He asks, who discovered America? He says, India continued to be in constant touch with the Americas during the millenniums of a world Vedic empire. So he's claiming, he's another one that claims India, what it was back then, was coming here. Now, what's interesting, he says, Mexican tradition says that their ancestors came from a beautiful, far-off land. Okay, we know that. They do claim a lot of people equate that with Atlantis. They automatically say, "Oh, it's Atlantis." Well, maybe it was the Rama Empire. Maybe it was India. He goes on to say, Professor Rama Mena, curator of the Rama Mena, curator of the Mexican National Museum, records in his book on Mexican archaeology about Mexicans that they are like the people of India. Isn't it interesting that this guy made that observation? Rama Mena, Professor Rama Mena, curator of the Mexican National Museum. He goes on to say, Dr. Magana Peon and Professor Humberto Cornin, members of the Geographical Society of Mexico, have concluded that as far as Nahuatl, Zapoteca, and the Maya languages, they are of Hindu origin. That's what he's claiming. What are your immediate thoughts on that, Maliah?
That was something that some people believed.
You've heard this then?
I heard it before the full Maya language was decoded completely. Okay. Now, the decoding of the Maya language wasn't completed or became even real until 2012, when the youth themselves, the Maya youth, decoded their own language and began to write it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's interesting. Okay.
So the so-called writer of, the famous one who says he decoded the Maya language was proven to be very wrong. Not just a little bit wrong, completely wrong.
Oh, wow.
And he had purported the idea that... So
the guy who got it wrong was saying it was of Sanskrit
that
origin.
It had of Hindu or Sanskrit
This
origin.
book was a few years back. Maybe Mr. Oak isn't aware of that,
It could have. Now, here's where I see that where he could be coming from, is that the same cosmology is happening in their language.
Okay.
And that is...
So that suggests a shared tradition.
A shared tradition, shared understanding of gods and the hierarchy of them, and an understanding of how the human spirit resides.
Okay. Let me see. Now, we get to Veracruz, which we were talking about earlier. Now, this is all Mr. Oak. For those of you who are wondering what I'm reading with my head down in here and who I'm quoting, it's P.N. Oak. Veracruz, the busiest port of Mexico in our own times, has gigantic, extensive ruins of a magnificent ancient civilization. Folks, this is the ancient city site called Tajín. I have been there. I was there on a trip with David Hatcher Childress. Spent, a sufficient amount of time observing, photographing, seeing firsthand. And my thought then was, this doesn't look like what we usually see in Latin America. This is very Asian. The old world would be the Oriental style, but it's very much. I have said before that I think people from the Com Empire built Tajín. Well, who are the Com Empire but people from India, people from Egypt, people from the Thailand, and throughout Southeast Asia. Okay, so when he says Veracruz in this instance, oak means Tajín. Look it up. It's a fascinating. It's got the temple with the pointy turned up corners, just like you see in China and Japan and such, and Thailand and all that. Anyway, I'll continue.
It made many of the first explorers believe that even the pyramids in Yucatan, which were similar to that, were Hindu or Chinese in origin.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see, the archaeologists also thought that. Among the ruins is a tapering 7-storied red sandstone temple with 365 niches. This is the one I'm talking about. I'll show you later the pictures that I took of it while I was there. You'll see. And you know what? I should post those in the comments section for reference
that would
to
be
this
fun.
episode.
Yeah, you should.
I'll read again. The immense stocks of gold and other wealth adorning the mansions of this ancient civilization were plundered by Spanish freebooters, as we know. Now, the Toltecs, okay, he's saying that at Tula, you guys look up Tula, Mexico.
Beautiful place.
Look up the Atlantes. The statues called the Atlantes. They're really cool. I've been there twice. And he's saying that they represent visitors from this ancient Rama Empire, so to speak. And he gets into this. I want to... Oh, you'll find this very interesting, Maliah. He says that the intricately carved Aztec calendar of Mexico, divided into the 4 Hindu ages, is divided into the 4 Hindu ages, comprising the exact number of years stated by Vedic tradition. You know a little about that calendar. Tell us.
Now, if you're intending to trigger me right there, then okay, it worked. Because the Aztec calendar, I believe, is a ripoff from the actual Maya calendar. And it's used in sacrificial rituals of the most grotesque kind. Now, is he possibly making the common, very common, even after 2012, mistake of calling the Aztec calendar the Maya calendar? Well, obviously no, because
you mean the Maya calendar, the Aztec calendar?
Yeah, because he's showing the division of 4 in the central god figure, which we find in the Aztec calendar. Yeah. You don't have that in the Maya calendar. The Maya calendar is completely the freaking opposite, the furthest from opposite that you could get. So I don't know. I would have to really dig into that paragraph and unpackage the rest of the context of what he's getting at there. Whether or not the Aztec is even an accurate calendar, I question.
But think about it. Now, let's think about it. Mr. Oak puts a different spin on it. What if it's of Ramayana origin? What if it is something that was a calendar design that was brought from or influenced by the civilization that came from the Hindu world?
I'm confused.
The influence. What if the origin of what we're, the Aztec of the Maya, whoever did that calendar, what if they were doing their local rendition or interpretation of a calendar that was originally of the Rama Empire, of the Hindu, the ancient, Hindu.
I would tend to agree with that if it was the accurate, actual Maya calendar.
Oh, okay.
Being that you're referencing the Aztecian calendar is what gives me like.
Well, maybe the Aztec one is a bastardization.
That's what I believe.
You do have Joseph Farrell and Scott Hart pointing out that the Aztec blood sacrifice was a twisted, perverse bastardization of the whole original concept of sacrifice. So what if the Aztecs, in their typical Aztec nature, this is how we see it.
I would completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. That they took, or by force removed the understanding of the real calendar. And
no pun intended, they removed the heart of it. Oh, God, you get all sorts of great dad humor here. Because I did turn 60 this year. So
was that I
remove the heart of it.
I don't even know.
Oh, you're so clever, Mr. Bosley.
You got to get the pinky in there while you do that.
Okay, so now with this, an argument could be made that there was this ancient. I don't know. If you say Vedic, people, the pedantics go, "Oh no, you can't use Vedic." If you say Hindu, "Oh no, you guys get my friggin' point." Okay, the World Vedic Heritage book here. You guys get my point. The old Rama Empire. If they were global, as Oak argues in his works, whether you want to buy it or not, we're just saying what he argues, and they had a presence, such an impactful presence in Latin America. Why would that presence have disappeared completely? Because it would be easy for them to be here kind of undercover.
Well, I think we have the proof of that.
Okay.
In the recent discovery by Forrester of the place, and I say by Forrester, he's of the most known even talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
They're right beside Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm.
We have Karan Tepe now.
Okay.
And Karan Tepe shows, the exact same cosmology of the Maya. They even look like the Maya.
Yeah. So see what you're saying there, how I see that is what we're looking at in the Maya and over there with the Maya presence. What we might be talking about is actually a global presence of this ancient Vedic, ancient Hindu civilization, the Rama Empire. And maybe it was truly global.
Yeah.
Now that said, with the Maya connection, because he really pushes a Maya culture connection with this Rama Empire. Okay.
Agree.
So does Gene Matlock in that other book. Now, here's the thing. When you're talking about secret and hidden bases and lost cities, and they say the others have been with us and they're with us, they just know where to hide out, we come back to Woody Derberger and Indrid Cold. Okay? Now you see why there's enough threads to pull and why there's enough there to go out on the limb of speculation and ask yourself, was Woody bullshitting us about Lanalos being a Ganymede, blah, 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 or was Mr. Cold bullshitting Woody? And did Indrid Cold actually take Woody Derberger to basically, a hidden city in the South American jungle?
I would tend to lean to that because here's my wonderings about Indrid Cold.
Mm-hmm.
Could he have been, in essence, a time traveler from thousands of years ago, entering a cave?
Oh, one of my favorite topics.
And making the move of going to one specific person in time, traveling,
mm-hmm.
then coming back to that same location of which he time traveled from and bringing that person into the then living civilization.
I got the title for this book, I Will See You in Time, from the film Mothman Prophecies. This is allegedly what the Mr. Cold, the Indrid Cold of the movie, says to the Woody Derberger type character in the film. I will see you in time.
Oh, really?
Now, what he says in that first interview that you can listen to on YouTube is he told him, "We will see you again," because there was another man with Cold. Yeah. He says, "We will see you again." Yeah. Well, John Keel fleshes out the "I will see you in time" bit. That pops up in the Mothman weird stuff. So you might be onto something with the time and the interdimensional.
It fits with my understanding of some stories I received while in the Yucatan of certain people going through a similar experience in which they found a cave, they opened a box, they inhaled the dust, and they were suddenly transported in time. In Guatemala, this happened. And they spent several weeks back then, thousands of years ago, or however long in the other time. And
then they came back? And then they were able to get back?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Yalbek Triangle? I talk about that in the Ambrose Bierce book, Destination Carcosa, Secret Missions, Volume 3. The Yalbek Triangle was a place in which it's this weird little spot in the jungle where people just disappeared. There's like 2 people that disappeared, never came back. They never even found their bodies, remains, or anything, But no, the interdimensional aspect of Indrid Cold is explored in John Keel's work, the Mothman Prophecies, the book, and the movie, the excellent movie. Remember, the Mothman Prophecies film with Richard Gere, that's the movie that the X-Files movies wished they had been.
Exactly.
It really did. Mothman Prophecies kicked ass. Sorry, Chris Carter.
I remember, I was old enough to remember when that movie came out, and it was, everybody knew about it. Everyone went to go see it.
Mothman
Prophecies was excellent. Shocking for the day and age.
And like I said, talking with Joshua the other night, the most important part of that film is when he goes to New York to see the Alexander Leak character, who is John Keel. And I'm getting goosebumps just when I think of what Alan Bates says to, Richard Gere during that, because it really encapsulates, I think, what we're talking about. So I'm going to be talking more. We're going to be talking more about the Woody Derberger encounter with Indrid Cold.
One of my favorite topics.
It's a great topic. And I don't know if I mentioned it tonight, but at the time this happened, I was living there in Mineral Wells, West Virginia. Yeah. Okay. I was about 3 years old when it happened, and we left West Virginia in, I think, January of '67. So we were living right there in Mineral Wells when all this was going on. I didn't hear about it until we moved back to West Virginia for a couple of years in 1973. Now, Woody's book, A Visitor from Lanalos or whatever, was published in 1971. I didn't realize it back then, but me hearing these stories, this was recent history going on. When we moved there in '73, Mr. Cold was the favorite story, boogeyman story. They would tell the kids, you better be in from them woods before dark or Mr. Cold will take you away. Now, what I find interesting is nothing in the encounter overtly is frightening. In fact, Indrid Cold tells Derberger, don't be afraid of me. We don't mean you any harm. It's interesting that traditionally angelic characters say that to people. Fear not, right? But Woody Derberger says in the interview, after he says that Cold said, we will see you again, he says, I hope not. He says in the interview, he goes, I hope not. I hope I don't. I find that's something we'll have to explore next time we talk about him, is there was nothing overt about the experience, but it left him frightened, and it left him not really wanting to have another encounter with him, although he claims he does later. So what is it, about the encounter, the experience? We'll have to explore that another time. But do check out Andy Colvin's theory about the Mothman being the Garuda. And,
that is a very interesting thing.
Yeah, further tying in the appearance of Garuda in a photo he took himself once he started investigating this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to agree with all of Andy's conclusions or ideas, but he's done he's contributed some very, very interesting and I think valid um, uh, points and interesting threads he's pulled in this whole Mothman Indrid Cold mystery. And so that's definitely worth checking out. So we really don't have any time for questions except
this one. Let's throw Nick's up there just for the fun of it.
Because we have to. She's got to give me a ride somewhere, and I have to be somewhere. Unfortunately,
so we got like 5 minutes.
We got like 5 minutes.
Throw one in there.
So throw a question in there, Nick. Folks.
I'm going to check that movie out. I think you're talking about a movie.
Check out Mothman Prophecies. My gosh, if you've never seen the Mothman Prophecies. So I don't think there's going to be any questions, really. We'll give it another minute or two. And that's okay. They're absorbing. They are absorbing. Remember, folks.
Oh, a series. We'll check it out. Yeah.
We'll let you know as soon as this link is active so you can buy your hardcover Wonder of the Worlds by Secherie, our good friend. Long time. My God, I've known Sesh now for 19 years. In this lifetime, we're convinced that,
we've done this a few
we've done this a few times.
We've jumped the
Thank
wheels
you, Nick.
so
And you know what,
times.
Nick? I'm telling you, I've just scratched the surface with the shows on these books you sent because, believe me, I've been going through the other books and it's just mind blowing. And again, Nick, I got to tell you too, thanks again for the 100th time for all the Model It Kit tools. I've been getting great use out of them.
Yeah.
I'm like working on 2 right now. I'm working on a ship model for her to have here at her place, and I'm working on a World War II Corsair, and those tools are just really coming in handy.
Yeah.
So, thank you all, Masters Maniac Mexico.
He's in Chitlan.
Oh, okay, cool.
You like how I pronounce that? Chochitlan. I can say it right. Griffin Eagle. I'm not sure.
Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you guys showing up on a Friday night. It's your Friday night, and you could be out having fun and partying and doing Christmas season things and anything but hanging out at the Walter Bosley channel, and here you are tonight. So I greatly appreciate that. We got to go. So
yeah, we should
thank you again. This coming Wednesday is Todd Wood and another excellent episode of California. Todd's going to have a special guest, so you'll see the graphic that gets released.
Remember, our time is set for 2 p.m. Pacific Standard, right? PST.
Unfortunately, with him, we got to wait till he gets home.
Yes, see, I'm glad we brought that up.
So it's going to be about an hour later.
What time do we start?
So we start between 3 and 3:30 Pacific time because he's in Tennessee, so he's 2 hours. He's central, so he's 2 hours east of us.
Yep, and we'll put up a notification.
Yeah, we'll do that, but you won't want to miss the next episode of California. Yes. And thank you guys again, and I hope you're enjoying these extra Friday night episodes. I wanted to start having a presence more often here, and here we go. So, hey, there's Kendall Ramirez. Haven't seen her in a while. And let's see, Black Tie and Griffin Eagle and D. Dorothy and everybody. So, okay, folks, that's it. We got to get going. Thank you again, and we'll see you Wednesday night.